Welcome to another edition of Plank of the Week. This show has become so successful because there are so many planks out there that we're going to have to do one at least once a week for the rest of time. It might be that we end up doing one once a day. Today, I'm delighted to tell you that I'm joined by two very clever people. Nadia Essex, who is a love coach and has been somebody that I've been involved with, and I don't mean in a loving way, for quite some time. Also Stewart Jackson, who I've also been involved in, also in a non-loving way, former Tory MP, former Special Advisor. Welcome to Plank of the Week. Let me start with you, Stewart. Why don't you tell us who your first Plank of the Week is?
Well, the Plank of the Week is Plank of every week, which is John Bercow, the former Speaker. We hear that he's likely to be ennobled on the recommendation of Jeremy Corbyn.
Yes.
Now, it might be that Boris, with his strong mandate, will say, I don't have to ennoble someone who's not even a member of the party. You know, what can you say about Bercow? He's actually been quoted in the last few days giving a speech in North London saying he was impartial and fair, didn't try and block Brexit. But he's also said at the same time, Brexit's a disaster and it'll be terrible for the country. I thought he'd reached the lowest point when he was behaving like a performing chimpanzee in the primate house on Italian television.
That was awful,
saying, "Oh, Denari!"
I mean, in fact, Nadia, I don't know whether you saw this, but this was John Bercow invited on to... Italian TV seems to me to be a bit odd. I mean, the only thing I know about Italian TV is they used to have a late-night football programme presented by two topless women, right? And that's kind of what they do on Italian TV. So, all right, if you like that sort of thing. But they have these weird sort of talent shows, and he appears on one of them, and they basically, with an audience, get him to shout out order in Italian. It was very demeaning, I thought.
I thought it was demeaning because, you know, the role of the Speaker has lasted for hundreds of years. He is actually quite high up in the constitutional settlement.
Yeah.
You know, he's behind the Prime Minister and Her Majesty, but he's very, very important. And I don't know what's going to happen when his book comes out, but we'll have probably more wall to wall. But he's Plank of the Week, Plank of the Month, and probably Plank of the Year.
I thought I'd heard as well this week that in order for him to be elevated to the House of Lords, he might have to join the Labour Party. And I guarantee you, if that's what he has to do, he will do it, because he wants to be in the House of Lords. He actually said, I think in an interview relatively recently, that he had no idea that he was going to become one of the most famous people in the world for just doing his job. And you just think, mate, you're not one of the most famous people in the world, okay? You're not Cristiano Ronaldo. I'm sorry. You're not Meghan Markle, to name but a few people that I can name. But, you know, I think that's a very good first nomination. I suspect that might well make it into the top 5, if not the top 3. Nadia,
the Burke.
Bercow the Burke. What's your first one then?
My first one is a little more showbizy.
That's what we want from you.
That's my forte. It has to be Lily Allen.
Lily Allen, yes.
I mean, I actually thought in the beginning it was a parody.
Right.
And it was a joke, and she was punking all of us.
Yes.
And did it for reaction.
This was her reaction to Lawrence Fox, right?
Yeah,
basically.
sort of telling him to stick to the day job.
Yeah.
Spelling his name wrong on Twitter.
She spelled most things wrong in the tweet, actually. I think she must have written it when she was drunk.
And then to say to somebody to stick to their day job and that they're a lovey, being one of, you know, a multimillionaire, extremely privileged, from a privileged background, you know, you got famous and a name off the back of your father.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then to sort of berate Lawrence for that, just...
Also, there's a kind of irony bypass going on where she's telling him, a man she accuses of never having to face up to the real challenges that everybody else does.
Yeah, how does she know?
And neither does she, right?
How does she know?
And then says, you know, lecturing people about something you know nothing about, which
Whilst
is precisely what
lecturing
she does.
Yeah. So you can't lecture you can't tell someone not to lecture somebody whilst lecturing them.
Yeah.
Right.
It just doesn't
I think
work.
her greatest hit was surely weeping over the Labour manifesto.
Yes.
Now, there were millions of people across Britain weeping over the Labour manifesto, but that's because they thought it was awful and a disaster. She's the only person I've ever come across who's so vain and monomaniacal and self-obsessed.
Yeah.
She weeps about a political document as if it's the Declaration of
I know.
Independence.
But on the platform
On
TikTok,
camera.
which is, you know, again, I thought it was a parody.
See, I don't know anything about TikTok. Is that one of the younger people?
It's the new thing.
Is
so
it?
Forget Facebook,
And
forget Twitter,
Instagram.
forget Instagram.
Right.
It's all about TikTok.
Should we be live streaming on TikTok then?
Definitely.
What
You
we should
make
be
like
doing.
fun videos and stuff.
Okay.
And they don't have the same rules about Instagram algorithms. So everyone's moving to TikTok because
Okay.
people actually get to see your content, which is great.
All right.
But so she put it on TikTok. So originally I was like, oh, it's just a bit of, again, it's a parody, it's a bit of fun. No, genuine tears coming out of her eyeballs over one of the most ridiculous manifestos that I'd ever heard of. Like, it was.
I personally enjoyed when she went over to the refugee camp in Calais and apologised on behalf of the nation. To all the people waiting there to come here, without actually offering any of them a spot in her mansion.
Well, she did promise that they could have a nice bunk in one of her spare bedrooms in her big house. Yeah, she did. But obviously these big socialists like Billy Bragg, who lives in a massive mansion on the coast, you know, people don't like to be lectured by these privileged liberal wokes like Lily Allen about how they should be doing things and how they should change their life.
And you can't say you don't know what it's like.
No.
When you don't know, we don't know what Lawrence Fox's life has been like.
No.
He could have had a really difficult life that we
Lawrence
don't know
Fox
about.
Basically said in response to that, because he was interviewed at Talk Radio by Julie Hartley-Brewer, he said, I'm a working man. He said, I work for a living. I pay my taxes. He said, I'm not going to pretend that I didn't have quite a privileged upbringing. But, don't tell me, how to speak and what to say. Yeah. And that's the biggest problem that these people have got. Well, they want to shut down the conversation because they don't like it.
And also it's quite brave of him because of this liberal groupthink in the media and creative industries. Yeah. He's now running the risk he's not going to be hired.
Yeah. And I'm going to, funnily enough, move on straight away from that because I'm going to nominate Equity, the Actors Union, because one of the things that they did, and this is all going back to Lawrence Fox's appearance on Question Time, where he was quizzed, by the way, by somebody who does a lot of work for the BBC, and he then got criticised by these two characters from Equity, who apparently put out a tweet basically urging everyone in Actors Equity not to work with him, to basically blank him from the profession and to make it impossible to ever work again. Equity then, and this is the reason they're planks, because I would have had more respect for them if they'd stuck with that line. Yeah. But instead of which, they took the tweet down, claimed that it was a couple of rogue tweeters on the Equity.
Tweeters.
Can you imagine what world headquarters of Equity's like? There's these guys going, right, quick, he's gone for a pee. Let's get on Twitter and send out this tweet and then run away. Yeah. I don't think so. I think they got found out, and I'm very glad they got found out.
They didn't like the blowback.
They really didn't like it. Because guess what? These people who claim that we're all intolerant are actually the intolerant ones.
100%. And as we have learnt from Brexit and from the election, Twitter is not real life.
No.
So you see Twitter hounding Lawrence Fox, 30,000 likes against him. Everyone's talking about everyone's against him. That's not real life. In real life, people were pro-Lawrence.
Yeah.
Everyone I spoke to, certainly. But on Twitter, it's just madness to see.
In the same way that in real life,
it's not true.
They want Boris Johnson to be Prime Minister. They don't want Jeremy Corbyn anywhere near Downing Street, and they'd quite like it if he buggered off right now.
Yeah, well, he should have done.
Yeah, he should really. I mean, he's another one that could be on the list every single week. But I shall come to your number 2 then, Stewart. Who have you got next for us?
Well, it's a guy called Alan Marjam, I think is how you say his name. He's the president of the Durham Miners Association. Oh, yes. He's a guy that has gone on Twitter today saying that notwithstanding the fact that Conservatives won more seats in County Durham than Labour for the first time in history, and actually more votes, that if they know what's good for them, the Tory MPs in Durham will stay away from the Durham Miners Gala. And if they do come, they'll need police protection.
Dear God.
Now, I think that is a very dangerous thing to say. Yeah. He may not be threatening them. He may have been misrepresented, but he's been interviewed and it's gone on Twitter. And I just think to say to the people of County Durham who've elected 4 Conservative MPs that we don't care what your votes are, these guys are not going to come to our Miners' Gala because we don't like them, and there's an implied threat of something untoward happening to them. I mean, it's shocking, really, and this guy really should be called out for it.
It goes back to exactly what you said.
Yeah.
The people that are the most intolerant are the ones that are screaming that they're being unfairly treated, and that they're
and it's the horrible, evil right-wing Tories that want to murder everybody and take away their benefits and sell the NHS. And in fact, none of those things is true.
None of them. No. None of them.
No.
So it's like, get with the programme, and to sort of hint at, if you know what's good for you, stay away, which to me implies that you're going to get violence if you go. It's just, surely that's a crime.
Yes.
Well, I must admit the rejoinder from the new Tory MP for Bishop Auckland in County Durham, Dahina Davison, was quite good. She retweeted his tweet and said, "See you there, Alan."
Yeah,
So
come on,
this-
girl.
See, that's great. That immediately takes the heat
young
out.
lady
doesn't
is
it?
not going to
Right.
be intimidated.
No.
Good.
Her
Good
for her.
constituents, I think actually the Durham Miners Gala may even be in Bishop Auckland. She's going to go because
for her.
and she takes a view. It's a community organisation, it's a community event, and I'm a local
Yeah,
MP.
absolutely
Good for
right.
her.
And by the way, I presume he's also banned miners from it as well, because there don't appear to be too many miners left in Durham, do there?
No,
I mean, what's the
It's
point
a-
of having a miners' gala, by the way?
No,
Sorry.
but what it is, it's a mindset. It's a mindset, Mike, that says working people in County Durham, we own them.
Right.
They're our people.
Yeah.
They'll do what we say, and Tories have no place. And that's 50 years out
Yeah.
of date.
But where have
It
we
really
got
is.
to this stage in this world where it literally is poor people good, rich people bad?
I know.
And there's no in between. It's like privilege equals bad person.
Mm.
And, you know, if you are poor and you're in poverty, two things. Either you deserve it because you're, you know, jobless and lazy, or, oh, poor little things.
Yes.
And, you know, it's all what a shame.
Well, also,
And-
most poor people would quite like to be rich.
Of course they
and many
would.
people work their way to
Yeah.
becoming rich, but started off poor.
Of course,
you
no
know,
poor
I mean,
person wants to
I
stay
get accused
poor.
by some of these numpties of, you know, well, everybody knows you were born into privilege. I'm like, actually, I was not born into privilege.
No.
I worked bloody hard to get where I am. Thanks very much
but
indeed.
do you know the
and so did
small-
most of the people that I know.
The
Yeah.
small amount of percentage of people that were born into privilege still had to work. There's a tiny trust fund crew.
Yes.
Tiny. But we don't judge all, you know, Muslims on the tiny percent of people that blow up buildings.
No, of course not.
We don't judge all people by the tiny percent that hijack, you know, wokeness. It's
Yeah.
like people graft, and if you are a success, it's usually because you've put blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah.
You've worked your backside off from the minute you wake up to the minute you go to bed
Yeah.
to create something. And why are these people demonized? Like, oh, you must be bad. No, I think it's great.
Yeah.
Like, give me inspirational people that have made something,
Mm.
even if it's from something. So, you know, people moan about, you know, oh, well, you probably got £1 million investment. Yeah, but he turned it into $1 billion.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
You
John
know, you
McDonnell
couldn't
wanted
do
to
that.
get rid of all the billionaires
That's right.
in the election. He said,
Yeah.
"We don't.
Ridiculous.
We want a Britain where there are no billionaires."
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
Do
how
we?
does that
No,
work?
we
Plan.
don't.
Great
So who's
idea.
going to pay the taxes
Yeah, exactly.
for social care and health and
Right.
schools and transport?
But why?
It's crazy.
But why are billionaires bad? You know, like, well, that's the other thing. Why? Yes, I understand that big corporations, you know, the sort of Amazons of the world, and people go, oh, they pay don't pay their taxes, and they're out in China. I get corporations can be bad, but the person, you know, the sort of when you look back at like the Steve Jobs of the world and the people that are billionaire wealthy, the Oprahs of the world. Look what she's doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She inspires me
Yeah.
to get up and graft to make a better life for myself. And
You're absolutely right. 40 years ago, when I was a child, 40% of people in the world lived in absolute poverty
Yeah.
on $1 a day.
Yeah.
40%. It's now about 8%.
Right.
And that's
Yeah.
because billionaires have invested in science and technology and GM crops and all the things that have made people who would have died live, have families and improve their lives. And this idea that all billionaires are bad, I mean, Belinda and Bill Gates have more or less wiped out malaria in
Yeah.
Africa because of the money they've
With their
invested.
foundation, yeah.
They're not perfect, but, you know, you've got to give them the due.
is? This is where we have to go. Who is perfect?
Exactly.
Nobody.
Now, look, this is too much talk about nice people because this is plank of the week
Right.
we're doing here. We're not doing, you know, hero of the week. We'll get you back for another time for that.
Yeah.
So you need now for a second nomination. Who have you got for us?
So I think the second nomination has got to be, unfortunately, Stormzy.
Stormzy.
Yeah.
Good choice.
And I say unfortunately just because I kind of like Stormzy, but recently he started doing, for some reason, lots of interviews
Yeah.
and stuff. And the more he speaks, the more I just think, oh, please, hun, don't.
Yeah.
Because
Just stick to the music.
Well, you're just not doing yourself any favours. And he actually put a tweet out yesterday because he got interviewed about how that he's still in love with his ex Maya Jama,
Right.
which is, you know.
But he's admitted treating her badly, hasn't
Well,
he?
first of all, he said that he wrote a whole song about how he cheated on her, and now he's come back and said that he didn't cheat on her, which again is like, well,
Okay. Which is it?
Which is it? But second of all, you know, he had to tweet yesterday because he can't actually finish a sentence because he was talking in the interview. And all I hear from him at the moment are sound bites of, you know, slagging off Boris in schools, which is really quite inappropriate. and saying that he robbed people when he was younger. The point was he was trying to say, I used to be a hood rat and now I'm not a hood rat. But I don't know, it's like, just please be quiet.
Yes, because unfortunately, as much as people would be interested perhaps in the fact that he's brought himself up from nowhere and he's got himself a great career and all of that, if he starts to talk about his past as a criminal, people who are currently doing what he's doing, that back then who are acting as criminals, will think this is great. Because look what happens. You can become a rap star, but I'll just keep robbing people until I become one.
Yeah, and
I mean, it's one thing to inspire people to be one like you.
Yes.
I think you've got to be careful
Yes.
about what you tell them that you did,
Yeah.
And he needs sort of media training almost in terms of, because what they're taking, you've got people like Alex Beresford from Good Morning Britain, who really inspires young black
He's great,
people.
yeah.
He's fantastic.
Yeah.
The way he speaks, what he does, he really inspires people to find solutions to be better. Whereas Stormzy just is like, I robbed a bruv, like, it all happened, bro. And it's like...
Sorry.
That's very good.
Whoa.
That's very good.
You're absolutely right. That there were hundreds and thousands of really inspiring Afro-Caribbean men and women who've done well in academia, in the health service, in accountancy, in business, who don't need to say F Boris, don't need to go into schools. Why aren't we concentrating on them? I mean, I think Stormzy is an uber plank.
He's a bit of a flash in the pan, isn't he? He's not going to be doing Glastonbury
who
in
cares
10 years.
what his views are? But
who knows? Listen, don't put it past him. He's got the fan base he's got. That's the problem, and that's why he keeps
But he's
getting booked for
surrounded
these
by
things.
sycophants, liberal, whiny Guardian reading types who say, "Oh, he's so cutting edge, he's so funky, he's so where it's at." And really, they should say to him, "Look, it's not a good idea to swear all the time about the Prime Minister. Try and..." I mean, I do think he's doing a little bit of good work, to be fair, to give him his due.
Yeah.
On the plus side, he is trying to get underprivileged young black
he's
boys and girls
got a scholarship program,
into university,
Yes.
and
that's
so
a good thing.
they can see the wonder of higher education and how it can really be a catalyst to change their lives. And so I admire him for that. He's putting his money where his mouth is, but that doesn't absolve him of the obligation to actually be respectful of the Prime Minister and not use swear words and not misuse his position.
But use your position to focus on that. Like I don't want to.
Also, he could be critical of Boris Johnson without having to do it the way that he does it. There's nothing, I mean, nobody would mind if he said, "Look, I really don't think the Conservative Party's doing what they should be doing because of blah." But to just go F Boris, I don't think so.
It's not constructive.
No.
Because the kids that are listening are going, well, why?
Yeah.
And so then they're saying F Boris, and you say, well, why? And they have absolutely no idea just because that's
it's
what
nonsense
he said.
because the Home Secretary's from a South Asian family background. The Chancellor's from a South Asian background. The candidate for the London Mayor is African Caribbean background,
Is
from
that
modest Sean Bailey.
Come on, Sean.
The fact is, the idea that the Conservative Party is institutionally resistant to people who are not white middle-class men is nonsense.
No, well, also, he did say in the past, didn't he, that Britain's racist, which it isn't, which brings me on to my second one, which I'm afraid is Meghan Markle. Last week, top of the list, top of the pops, because you can have more than one. We had Harry and Meghan last week for being a pair of planks, right? This week, I'm going to take Harry out of it. Not because he's not a plank, because he still is, but she's, I'm afraid, a bigger plank this week, because not only has she moved lock, stock and barrel to Canada, right, which is a god-awful place to move to anyway, she's taken him away from his father, away from his brother, away from his grandmother, away from his entire family, to live on some god-awful island in the middle of nowhere, Vancouver Island, which you can only get to by seaplane, by the way, only if the weather happens to be good on one day out of 7. I saw a piece of film last night from some snow, and they get something like 7 feet of snow in Canada, sort of overnight. You can get your car completely covered in snow. Not only that, right, but this is why she's in it this week. She claims that she had to leave this country because of the overt sort of racism that she was suffering from, and also from the intrusion from the press. Today, on the front pages of the newspapers, we see pictures of her very awkwardly carrying her baby Archie, clearly she doesn't carry him around very much, because I've had 4 kids, and you do not carry a child like that.
Well, she couldn't put the thing on.
She
Right.
had the thing on. She's got 2 dogs like that. I mean, any woman, new mother, as she says, you know, it's hard to be a new mother. Well, it's not so hard when you've got a nanny, you've got 2 orderlies, you've got a cook, a housekeeper, a couple of bottle washers, you know, and some Secret Service guys to drive you around. Paid for by us. You know, she doesn't know what it's like. I mean, you're going to be a new mother soon. You're not going to have an entourage of 15 people following you around.
Well,
are you?
we're not sure about that. You
Well,
might do.
you may, I mean, after the
Darling.
success of Plank of the Week, I mean, you should have.
Yeah.
You deserve it.
Right.
You know, you're a proper princess. You know, this woman, I'm afraid, has posed for the picture. You can see that after about 5 minutes of the photographers taking the shots, she'll be handing the baby back to the nanny. Because, you know, it just doesn't look right. She's smiling at the cameras. This is a woman who doesn't want to be in the papers, but she's already done 3 private engagements since she's been there, which have all been photographed and put out.
my tongue.
Because I know you've been in...
They were private visits.
Yeah,
apparently.
you've been in defence of her. So, you know, tell me why.
Meghan's a grafter, and that's what we were saying before. She's a worker.
She's a networker.
To get to where she got in her acting career, she would have had to work extremely hard. So then to go from that to then having really no identity in terms of, you know, she's sitting around the palace and yeah, she's got all these people, but she's not doing anything. And so she tried to do it up to keep her busy. That kind of project came and went, and then the baby came, and then that was that done. And she wanted to work. So, and then she obviously has inspired Harry to want to work. And I just think everyone's just lost their minds when it's come to Meghan Markle.
Can I just say why I don't agree with you? I mean, I'm not going to have a go at them, and I think it's a great tragedy for Harry, and I think he'll regret what's happened. First of all, you know, a generation or so ago, Prince Charles, who's much maligned, started the Prince's Trust. It's had a massive impact on young people. The Duke of Edinburgh, God bless him, started the Duke of Edinburgh scheme, which has had a massive impact. She could have done a similar thing within the confines of the royal family.
She couldn't have done it though, because every single time she breathes, she gets criticised.
No, but this
so there's nothing she could have done.
This is the misnomer, and this is the myth, I think, that she has uniquely been traduced and attacked by the media. You look at the stuff that Fergie put up with, and Diana.
Yes.
Yeah, but and that's the point.
Diana's and Edward. I mean, Edward was ridiculed.
I mean, Edward tried to start a film company.
Yeah.
Right, but because the only films he could make were about the royal family through no fault of his own.
Yeah.
And then he had that horrendous It's a Knockout.
Which was a disaster.
Terrible idea.
Yeah.
But he basically, effectively, it made it impossible for him to work.
Exactly.
But the point is, if you're in the royal family, you can't just work like a normal person, because she knew what she was getting into. She was marrying into the royal family.
She didn't know what she was getting into.
Well, she should have known, surely.
Nobody knows what they're getting into.
Well, I think you have a pretty good idea.
We've been this way before, and to say, you know, it's all about race. I mean, even Kate was weighty Katie. She was attacked for, you know, clinging on to
and her family were
William.
attacked. Her mother, you know, Dawes to Manuel, as she was known, because she used to be a BA
made fun
stewardess.
of the fact she'd been an air stewardess. Yeah. And the
difference
happens.
is that yes, okay, she got a little bit of handling, but Meghan is off the scale. And when you've got
but there's a reason for that.
When you tell people to take care of their carbon footprint, as you get on Elton John's jet and fly to Nice,
right?
Yeah, but
and say, well, it's all right, guys, because we're carbon offsetting.
Yeah, we're carbon offsetting.
Look, I'm a royalist.
But everybody's a hypocrite, and that's the point. Oh. When you get asked to speak, of course, we all use single-use plastic. We all,
but I don't tell people not to.
Yeah, that's
so I'm not a hypocrite, actually.
But when you are speaking, but when she was speaking at that engagement, she wasn't, and that
Greta. She's at Davos.
She's at Davos. What the hell is she doing there, by the way? I mean,
she's done a bunk. She should be in fourth period geography now.
I know.
She's at Davos.
I know. She should be learning where Davos is, not actually sitting there. You know, do you know how expensive it is in
Davos?
Davos? Yeah, they invited her.
2 speeches.
Because apparently they're now going to be. Even Davos is now becoming green. Right, the place where the richest people in the world go, world leaders go there to sort of carve up what the economy is going to be like for the rest of the year and what sort of policies they should have. They've now decided to jump on the eco-plank bandwagon, and they're going to tell us all, you know, what we should be doing for the next 12 months. It's absolutely bloody ridiculous. Anyway, we're running out of time, guys, so we better get to the third and final nomination before we whittle them down to 3. So what's your third one, Stuart?
Well, I think it's a corporate plank of the week, and that's the BBC.
Excellent.
The BBC is coming to the end of the road for this compulsory television tax that they've levied for all these years. And I think it's a combination of 2 things. One is technology is overrunning them. In other words, streaming services which make their model, which was developed in the 1940s and 50s, completely redundant. But I think they haven't helped themselves. They're paying women salaries that are lower than men, having too many management staff. When I was in Parliament, we tried to look into management payoffs, redundancies, and we were defeated, frankly, because the BBC said we've got better lawyers than Parliament and you can't have that information. I remember sitting opposite Lord Patton, who's one of the most insufferably arrogant people you could ever meet, as chairman of the BBC Trust.
Former governor of Hong Kong.
Yeah, saying it doesn't matter what you think because we know what we're doing and we're not going to tell you. So that's the first thing. And also I think their coverage of identity politics, of climate change and particularly Brexit have been outrageous in the last year or so.
I had a call today on the show that I was doing earlier, and this big report from the IMF coming out and saying that basically the UK economy in the future is going to be better performing than every other Eurozone country, right, in the next 2 to 3 years. This woman rang in and said, you know, that's not even on the BBC website. It's on the front page of the Times.
Yeah.
It's not even on their website.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah.
And yet
Is it though? It's just like...
Well, if the IMF had said it the other way round, you know, you can bet it would be there.
The Today programme is like, in the run-up to the general election, it was a Remain anti-Brexit whinge-a-thon.
Yeah.
Every morning, every bad news story, it was basically, let's go to patronise some northern people, some horny-handed northern people who are stupid,
right.
and put them up against, you know, enlightened, liberal, intelligent people in London.
I converted my mum to Piers Morgan because I literally could not listen to the sort of monotonous brainwashing of the BBC in the morning.
I know.
I had to. I was like, Mum,
same with all the news programmes when they would go,
Susanna.
as you say, to not only do that in the north, but they would also go and find people in various businesses who would say that, you know, their supply chains were going to disappear and everything was going to go horrible. Because it's now looking like actually all of that was entirely incorrect.
Yeah. And it's also a misnomer because huge numbers of people who had, I mean, I'm not typical, but I've got 2 degrees. I voted for Brexit.
Clever guy.
People with A levels voted for Brexit. Business owners voted for Brexit, and there's lots of people who were low skill, low wage people who voted for Remain. It was a very
also, do you know
picture.
when I think I said this to you before, when Dominic Cummings and Boris Johnson took over in Downing Street, all of that Remainer nonsense that all Brexiteers are all stupid. It all finished. It all ended because they had some very clever people inside Downing Street, and they were themselves very clever, and they ran rings round the Remainers, frankly, and they absolutely out-strategized them.
I think the Remainers made a fool of themselves. Though,
August until December. Yeah, exactly.
I think that was the problem. They jumped on the whole, you know, everyone that voted Brexit stupid and didn't evolve. And so for years and years and years, that's the strategy they stood by. And it was like, actually, you know, you guys, you are just, I think they helped every single Ramona caused Brexit.
Yeah, because they saw and continue to see, even now, everything through the prism of material self-interest. It's not good for me. I can't have my Croatian villa. I can't have my Hungarian guys cleaning my car. And actually, people in this country are much more nuanced and sophisticated. They see things through the prism of patriotism, identity, their local town, their local community.
Which Ramonas would say is racist, is them being racist.
Yeah, they would say that.
They can't handle it.
It's because they don't understand the viewpoint of these people. I mean, I travelled all over Europe with David Davis when I was Chief of Staff. I actually took the trouble to understand why many of these countries wanted to remain in the European Union. And I do understand it because if you've lived under a tyranny of a dictator like Franco or Mussolini or the Greek colonels, why would you not want to protect your children's freedom and prosperity by a supranational body?
Yeah.
Because you've been let down by your own government. We've never had that.
No, exactly.
We've never been overrun by a dictator. We can run our own country as a sovereign, independent nation.
And I think when we went in, we had that same sort of dreams when we first went in. You know, our parents were like, that's what they thought. Oh, yeah, it'd be great to be part of something. Yeah. And actually,
but they didn't know what it was going to become.
Of course, it's just a joke.
I know. No. So what's your final one then?
So the final one has to be, and he is a national treasure, and when he dies, I will cry.
Will you?
Yeah, for sure. But it has to be David Attenborough. I'm obsessed with him.
Listen, I love that you're saying that because I've been a great critic of his over the most recent years, right?
Have you?
And people go, how can you have a problem with David Attenborough? You know, he's like God. Well, not to me, he's not.
he's not got long
What's
left.
he so worried about? I mean,
Well,
he's not going to be around that long, is he?
He is trying to make
know.
a change, but it's the sort of, the world is overpopulated, and then that's it. Well, the only
you're
way...
talking about the planet's overrun with humans. Well, it's our planet.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
I'm glad it's not overrun with leopards.
The only
Otherwise,
way
we'd all
that
be dead.
The only way that you can counteract that, Sir David, is by a mass wipeout of human beings.
Yeah.
And the wipeout will be the poorest and most vulnerable.
Yeah.
Which, you know, surely is not something that he would advocate.
And I assume he also will not actually say those words either, which are the true words, which are the reason that population growth is such a problem, is because it's a problem in places like India and places like China. In this country and in most of Western Europe, you've got falling birth
We're
rate.
depopulating.
Yeah. Where,
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't seem like it when you walk out of this building and it's a bit busy out on London Bridge. But frankly speaking, you know, it's not, the population problem is not our problem.
Yeah.
In the same way that the climate crisis problem is not our problem.
Well, that's why Germany didn't have a problem with it importing many thousands of immigrant workers, because their population is stabilising and dropping.
Yeah.
I'm in two minds, because I grew up with David Attenborough, and he is a bit of a sort of living
He is a
legend.
national treasure,
He's
that's
a
true.
And a national treasure. And he opened up
he is.
biodiversity in the environment and the wonderful cinematography.
And he has made some great shows.
He's made some
I
wonderful
think the
shows.
problem is he just needs to stop now. He's too old. He should retire
Well, I
and
don't
go and
know.
sit in a pub somewhere.
I don't know. I like no. Keep making. I like the shows. Like I want to hear his voice. It sends me to sleep. It soothes me. I enjoy it. But again, you know, it's like, you know, stop. I just wish people would stop saying this is a problem without actually saying the solution.
Right.
Tell me the
I
solution.
get very irritable when people start talking about everybody knows it's a climate emergency. Actually, no, it is not a climate emergency. An emergency is when you call for an ambulance because somebody's dying on the floor.
But what can we do? But tell me what we can do. Tell me if okay, it's a climate emergency. We get it. What can I do?
Nothing. Now, we're really running out of time here because we're running way over. So now my final one, I'm going to go very quickly, is Paul Mason. You know, the so-called journalist, but who isn't really a journalist, used to be on Channel 4 as their economics editor, seems to have gone mad, right? He's definitely plank of the week. He's lost the plot entirely. Before the election, he was ranting and raving into cameras, any camera he could find, about the danger of electing Boris Johnson, who was a serial liar, you know, misogynist, not to be trusted. He was organising demos. He's now fallen out with all of his cohorts on the left. He's actually blocked Aaron Bastani, who's another plank, the bloke that runs Novara Media, right? Completely pointless, these people. He calls himself a luxury communist, like Ash Sarkar, you know, that bloke, with that woman with the moustache, as I like to refer to her. You know, the point is, you know, these people are all now fighting amongst themselves because they can't agree on what the problem is. Well, I'll tell them what the problem is.
Yeah.
The problem is they're lefties.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
The thing, I think, where he jumped the shark, Mason, is where he attacked Rebecca Long Bailey, who's another loony lefty like him, frankly.
She's actually not a bad woman.
She lives in a posh house in Cheshire where the comrades can't find her.
Right.
But she's still a loony lefty
Yeah.
because she thinks she gave 10 out of 10 to Jeremy Corbyn, and you've got to be pretty deranged to do that.
Yeah.
But he actually
Where's
said,
mathematics and Diane Abbott?
because she cares about abortion as a Catholic, as a practicing Catholic,
Right. Which
you
is
know,
within her right to do so.
that she was taking orders from the Vatican.
Yeah.
You know, that sort of anti-Catholic trope has been used against John Kennedy.
Yeah.
You're taking orders directly from the Pope.
Right.
Now, if he'd said that about a Muslim, you're taking orders from the Imam in
Mecca or
in
somewhere,
Mecca, there'd be outrage.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. He's gone completely loop the loop.
Yeah.
And he's not a serious. He never was a.
He
serious
never was a proper journalist, no.
And now I think he's burning all his bridges, even with the crazy lefties.
Yeah.
And I think the sooner people realise that by slagging off your opponent and sort of nothing constructive, I only look at them and just go ugh and roll my eyes. You know, I don't respect you for slagging them off.
No.
What are you doing? Tell me about you
Exactly.
and what good you're doing.
And also, what's the point of this bloke anyway? I mean, he won't run for election. He won't stand for anything. He'll sit on the sidelines carping on about
Well, he's
what
the
he thinks
patron
is right.
saint of all these thuggish leftists in Momentum.
Right.
You know, he turns up in some manky church hall with all these people whose political
And he obviously
evolution
thinks
stopped in about 1974.
Yeah, also he thinks he's some kind of intellectual as well. You know, the old ragged
he's a sort of
trousered
poor man's
philanthropist.
Varoufakis.
Yes.
I mean, Varoufakis is cool, you know, the Greek finance minister.
Yeah.
He's a bit funky. He's got a leather jacket. All the ladies like him. You know, he's got a crazy moped. Made lots of money out of saying Brexit's terrible. And then you've got Paul Mason, who's this deranged, ranting lefty who obviously is now
a busted
a
flush.
busted
Pound man
flush.
He
version.
is. He totally is. Right, now we're getting to the final part here. So I'm choosing Lily Allen as your best one because I think she definitely has to be up there. So either one of you guys can choose which one you prefer of mine. Or you can choose his if you want.
Yeah, please, because it has to be the BBC.
Stuart, you choose the third final one.
I've got to say Meghan because I think, I'm sorry, I don't have
Please,
a
leave the
particular
woman alone.
problem with her, but I do think
For
she's
once.
been like a typhoon.
It's
that
hard not to
swept
have her in
through
there.
the royal family.
It's really hard not to have her in there.
And I just
One
think,
day, I'll win you all round.
I just think that the royal family has been able to adapt over hundreds of years.
Exactly.
And no one is bigger
No.
than the royal family.
But they are
as the Queen
adapting.
rather brilliantly pointed out last weekend when it came out. Now, so this is the tough bit now, right? So now we have to agree on which one of the three we drop.
Give the woman a break for 1 week. Come on, I'm pregnant. You've got to give me that.
Okay.
So
I
she's
think
still in the list.
She's in.
We've got to
Yeah.
still in
drop,
the list.
But drop Meghan.
All right.
Yeah, let's
as
drop Meghan because I think Meghan's going to feature over many weeks and months.
She will.
I would say the plank of the week, if you're asking me, is Lily Allen.
Yeah.
Because she is a plank.
I think so.
She's a hypocrite.
Yeah.
She's deeply unpleasant. And she thought that...
Tell us what you really think.
Yeah. And she thought that Corbyn's appalling, crazy manifesto was worth crying about and filming herself in a vain way. So, Lily Allen...
I can't argue with that. What do you think?
Yeah, I think, you know what, you say dumb stuff on social media, you've got to be held accountable. I know more better than anyone. So, you know...
Well, we've all been there to some extent.
Full-blown Lily Allen all the way.
OK, well, I think Lily Allen does make it then. Unanimous. Lily Allen, plank of the week. Congratulations. See what we can do next week.